Cameroonians, dear leaders of change, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the dawn of a rather particular era in the history of the world at this precise period of the 21st century. The critical look that we cast on the world today shows us enough that countries are redefining themselves. Men and women dare in new technologies that develop a kind of struggle towards domination of the strongest over the weakest, in particular the competition of the perfect and most prominent nations over the others. Each era of expression of these selection criteria is defined and refined day by day by the people of these different nations. Critical eyes are fixed on the world. Juries and spectators are blown away by the strategies presented to them. We can feel a stir of questioning taking place throughout the globe because the season requires it, and there are those who follows. There are only those who follow the evolution of the world who position themselves and trying to pull their pin from the game. And there are only those who follow the evolution of the world who position themselves and try to pull their pin from the game. Each country has its story and its moments of glory. And I humbly think that Cameroon, my dear and beautiful country, cannot fail to be part of this movement of reflections, not with such waves of change that are currently shaking the world, to the point where even some African countries whose awareness and awakening could not be expected have become aware of it. In view of this inevitable turning point that the history of Cameroon will take, it will be inappropriate for me not to seize an opportunity as historic as the one presented to me on this day, January 1st, 2025, a year long awaited by Cameroonians in order to address the august audience that you are. Dear sons and daughters, dear brothers and sisters, dear parents, dear Cameroonian people, our country, this great and beautiful country, has seen the birth in its midst. For several millennia practically, of men and women who have flocked from several corners of the world and have settled in particular on the land of the north for what concerns the northerners, on the side of the west and the northwest for the people of the grassfield, on the coast and the southwest for the Sawas, from the center for the Ekans, from the east for the Pygmies, who are, according to order of precedence, the first occupants of this country, from the south for the Bulus and the Gumbas, and everywhere in the territory, by their love, their innovative ideas, their talent, their sense of hospitality, their multifaceted actions, they built this country not only by populating it exponentially with so many children, but also by laying the foundation for the distribution, harmonization, and management of national heritage of all forms. These men and women shed their blood, sweated, gave their time, their ingenuity for the founding of this country by building it with their own hands when technology was not accessible. They built houses with their own hands. They constructed huts to shelter the families from the cold and the sun. They did what was necessary in their time to ensure balance and harmony and their cohabitation in a concept of social cohesion, integrity, and national unity, characterized by inter-community and inter-ethnic marriage between families, friends, and acquaintances, which resulted in living together. That's not all. These ancestors of Cameroon saw the birth of other countries. They took care to help several for their socio-economic developments. These countries, which were nothing yesterday, today, thanks to the support and multiple actions of these ancestors, have become what we call today highly developed countries. Despite all that, our country continues to endure as difficulties, endogenous and exogenous challenges. It continues to feed great nations and to be able to take off without having a waiver, being in total instinct. Except that this situation cannot last. Even Son Goku ended up dying. This vision of these men and women for a Cameroon prospering by its own realities and their will to achieve these objectives came up against the savage opposition of the colonial system, which imposed, on the contrary, their own system, which led the assassination of all internal resistance. Consequence of the leaders who left their lives there, those we call today the martyrs of the independence of Cameroon. They are Charles Tangana, born around 1883 in Yaoundé and died in 1943 at the age of 60. Douala Mongabel, born in 1873, executed by hanging at the age of 41 in 1914. Martin Paul Samba, born around 1875 near Ebolova and executed on August 8, 1914 at the age of 39. Ruben Umniobe, born in 1913, assassinated by French troops on September 13, 1978 at the age of 45. Ernest Owonje, born in 1914, died shot on January 15, 1971 at the age of 57. Felix Moumier, born in 1925 and died of poisoning on November 3, 1960 at the age of 35. These blood sacrifices for the liberation of our motherland will result on January 1st, 1960, in the proclamation of the independence of Cameroon, a young state at the head of which was elected His Excellency Mr. Amadou Ahidjo, first president of the First Republic of regretted memory. However, this independence unofficially spanned 76 years under colonial domination. His action at the time will clash, like those of his counterparts in French backyard of Africa, with the context as troubling, cold, delicate, and restrictive as the colonial system was in place. Therefore, even the most skillful, the most astute, the most intelligent man will perhaps not be able to move by himself, because the conditions being quite sensitive already predispose him to many difficulties and potential bad decisions. Faced with this systematic oppression, His Excellency Mr. Amadou Ahidjo will have the audacity to take up his pen to write the history of the first governance of his country, our country, Cameroon. A concept that he will lead and concretize under a slave-driving bloodening of the supervisor. It is understood that speaking of independence is only seen in the mind. Indeed, during his 22 years of reign, the father of the nation, as he was affectionately called, fought hard to make Cameroon a prosperous country in several respects: politically, diplomatically, economically, socioculturally. From the federal state that will be set up on October 1st, 1961, for the reunification of the two federated states, West Cameroon and East Cameroon, he will lead Cameroon to unification for a unitary state born on May 20th, 1972, thus moving from the federal state to the unitary state from where the United Republic of Cameroon. From that moment, the concept of national unity will be proclaimed to materialize the flag of Cameroon, which was struck with 2 gold stars on the red band and modified to a gold star on this same red band, and thus symbolizing national unity. It is by a presidential decree of our current head of state dating from the year 1984 that the United Republic of Cameroon will henceforth be the Republic of Cameroon. On the diplomatic level, he played a leadership role in the creation and support of the Organization of African Unity, founded in 1963. He was a strong advocate of decolonization in Africa. He supported liberation movement in South Africa, Angola, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. He contributed to the condemnation of apartheid. Upon his resignation on November 4, 1982, the head of state, His Excellency Mr. Amadou Ahidjo, declared to the entire Cameroonian nation that he was living a politically, economically, socially, and culturally healthy and united country. At the same time, he also invited the Cameroonian people to support his constitutional successor. As proof, his constitutional successor, current president of the Second Republic of Cameroon, His Excellency Mr. Paul Biya, in his swearing-in speech on November 6, 1982, confirmed and reaffirmed the healthy situation of the socio-economic and cultural policy that he had bequeathed to his governance. Some of the works of this great statesman are known to all and are still talking about, though they are absent today for some. On the economic level, the SNH National Hydrocarbons Company, created in 1977 to manage oil exploitation. Sonara was created in 1973 to manage the oil refinery and for the production of local petroleum products. The CDC, Cameroon Development Corporation, created in 1945 to manage plantations of cocoa, coffee, and other agricultural products. SUNEC, founded in 1967 to manage and distribute drinking water in the major city of Cameroon. Cimencam, cement company in Cameroon, created to develop the cement industry, essential for the construction of modern infrastructures. The BEAC, founded in 1972, plays a key role in monetary regulation in the sub-region, including in Cameroon. The BCD, Cameroonian Development Bank, founded in 1977, created to finance development projects, particularly in the sector of agriculture and industry. On the social level, the National Center of Medical and Health Research, founded in 1971 to conduct research on endemic diseases in Cameroon, such as malaria, tuberculosis, with promotion of healthcare, hospitals. The CMPS is attributed to the social protection of workers and to health coverage in a country which still lacked a universal health system. A universal health system, a university, engineering schools, educational establishment. The Second Republic. Today, what can we say about this laudatory legacy, recognized, approved, appreciated, confirmed, and reaffirmed, left by the first president of the First Republic to the Cameroonian people of this Second Republic? A young man then took the head of the Second Republic of Cameroon in a context that was, according to the facts, quite promising, but without pretending that everything was rosy, since each responsibility always involves opposition and obviously unwavering support. Some major reforms that this Second Republic brought. On the political level, the advent of democracy through laws of freedom of opinions, conscience, associations, multipartism, which must be highly welcomed. Decentralization, although not yet in its full development, demonstrates a desire to maintain a balance in the free management of our heritage resources. The establishment of the University Institute throughout the territory started from a university at the time in Yaoundé and has 11 universities today in all 10 regions of Cameroon and more than 500 private university institutes. On the diplomatic level, this Second Republic has influenced the diplomatic world throughout the wisdom and the dynamic and daring actions of our head of state. So, the major facts are the appointment of several sons and daughters of Cameroon to high international functions within the United Nations system, the most prominent of which are the current president of the 45th UN General Assembly, in the person of former Prime Minister Philemon Yang, from the Director of Cybersecurity at the Pentagon in the United States, in the person of Charles Kanwa, and several other high international functions of the kind. Several headquarters of international organizations are housed in Cameroon. There are around 10 of them. He worked for the resolution of the border conflict with Nigeria in 2002, Bakassi conflict. He worked for the commitment of peace and security in Africa. He was a mediator. He worked for the fight against terrorism and Boko Haram. He worked for the diversification of international partnership, particularly with China and the Gulf countries. He worked for membership in the African Union and the Francophonie. On the defense and security level, the Simbok War School, E-Force. In the sub-region, Cameroon is the lone of its neighboring countries in the CEMAC zone and the only country in this sub-region that shelters refugees, and we owe this to the hospitality policy of his head of state. On the social level, the promotion of gender through the creation of the Ministry of Women, which is now the Ministry for the Promotion of Women and Family. On the cultural level, a Ministry of Art and Culture will be created with training school. The fact remains that on the economic level, the failure is catastrophic. On the justice front, the tomb of Cameroon, according to authorized and bona fide sources, witnesses of history, justice was applied with rigor, firmness, tenacity, and this in all areas. Speaking of embezzlement and corruption, my father informed me that at the time of First Republic, since I was not yet born, that the civil servants who were tempted by users to succumb to corruption took the files of the letter and the amount of money given in order to forward this to their hierarchy, and several of the guilty were struck with a firm sentence. He will also mention a police officer who had been dismissed because he had received 500 CFA from a driver. This means that impunity was not at the rendezvous of the application of justice, and no one was exempted from sanction. Today, we are witnessing a business-oriented, mercantilist, lame justice system. It is money that makes the law, and we no longer take into account the interests of the victims. The people are abandoned to themselves. The public opinion today is such that it will be better to negotiate with your thief or to let it go than to go to court again. What a terrible climate. On the application of human rights freedom, Cameroon is placed among the first countries that flagrantly violate these rights through acts of torture, abuse of authority, and non-application of its own laws and regulations. In short, on these actions of governance, Cameroon is placed among the leading elite of the very poorly governed countries in the world. In Cameroon, a small handful of men grouped in the central administration has taken the country hostage and managed it for their selfish personal family interest. Moreover, to have a better condition, they imperatively impose you to be part of their exoteric lodges, as if the interest of these secret societies takes precedence over the future of our country. What an abomination. On the defense and security front, it is deplorable, it is pitiful, it is with tears and abundant tears that I express myself on this subject, as cold as it is shameful. I am not saying anything new. I am carrying out here loudly the feeling expressed by the Cameroonian people, whose fact speaks for themselves. The major criminality that is deplored in Cameroon through robberies, assassinations, ritual crimes, acts of terrorism, trafficking in human organs, the management of the war situation in the far north, in the west, in the northwest, in the southwest, are unfortunately maintained by our authority. Are unfortunately maintained by our authorities. Indeed, I call all the people of the Northwest, the Southwest, and the Far North to witness that I only carried their feelings and their voices here to denounce the high treasons of our defense and security forces in relation to the management of this specific crisis. How to understand that the Amazonian or separatist forces and their ilk have instituted dead Mondays throughout the territory of these two regions, and the administration obeyed. That armed gangs, heavily armed, entered the middle of the city like Manfe, go so far as to set fire to 25 houses and kill 22 people with gunshots fired at the running victims. That in Cambe, the same scenario occurs where armed gangs kill students and leave without any intervention from the defense and security forces in a war zone. Moreover, that in each of these cases, the admiring authorities and the heavily armed defense forces for the latter will go down to the field to assess the damages and report. They look like bailiffs. That in the commercial traffic zone between Cameroon and Nigeria, when users arrive at the checkpoint of the regular forces after having finished their checks, they will advise these users of the presence of Amazonian and separatist forces. They are in front. That criminals will enter in broad daylight and kidnap the mayor of Bamenda II, whom they will kill afterwards, and that previously they had kidnapped the sub-prefect of Bamenda first, his brigade commander, the special commissioner, and two of his agents, and live in complete peace. The sub-prefect, taking advantage of the lack of vigilance of the guards, will escape while the others will be assassinated. A scene that will take place in a city where all the defense and security forces are permanently present. During a speech by the governor of the Northwest region, at the handover of command between the outgoing and incoming prefect of Bamenda, this administrative authority declared, I quote, "Following the kidnapping of the sub-prefect of Bamenda first and his collaborators, the defense forces carried out muscular operations which resulted in the release of the sub-prefect. He will not give the destination of the four others who had been assassinated. The sub-prefect's report had literally contradicted the statements of the governor." What an image. These are not the only cases of disinformation and gratuitous assertions by administrative authorities over the 8 years that this crisis has been going on. To name just this one case, it is therefore undoubtedly easy to conclude that there is an agreement and therefore a coalition between the administration and the enemy forces to manage together the rest of the population in crisis who took the risk of staying at home after the departure, seeing the painful disappearance of several of their family members who are dispersed across the nation and even exiled. Instead of feeling secured by their defense and security forces, they are rather exploited and robbed in an agreement with the enemy forces. A field investigation will not contradict me, since it is the agonizing cries of these people that I bring here before the national and international opinion. Concerning the management of state budget. In the First Republic, at the end of the budgetary year, those managers who had not exhausted their budget paid the remainder to the public treasury. But today it is practically open thief without risk of prosecution, to the point of having enough courage to ask for the budgetary extension in addition, with almost no concrete materialization. What a rape. In order to provide evidence to my statements, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Kwayeb Enoch, at that time in 1968, of regretted memory, had estimated that the remainder of his budget, which was 500,000 francs CFA, was insignificant to declare the surplus, had been summoned by President Aidjo, who will order him to go and pay it back and bring him the receipt. What a remarkable operation. State agents or any other employee could not afford a certain luxury, in particular the purchase of a certain category of vehicles, all goods combined. On the other hand, today, it is luxury that is most in with ministerial positions that never end, arguing with Cameroonians on the national channel, declaring with explanation to support that Cameroonian can live on 36,200 francs CFA. Today in Cameroon, this system has managed to gangrene the people to the point where if you do not bluff with luxury, you are not taken seriously. The result is magic wallet. And we complain about the decrepitude of our society. What caused the decadence of an heritage declared and recognized as healthy, yet today it is in misery, precariousness, indecency that the Cameroonian people live daily. The increasingly expensive life is there to confirm my analysis. Upon observation, all the opinion of good faith, whether internal or external, have made the conclusion that poor governance, which is characterized by the embezzlement of public funds, corruption, and exhausting indebtedness of our country, result in a very high unemployment rate, ridiculous poverty, in short, a mediocre state of affairs of the socio-economic life of Cameroon. How can we understand that a country like ours, my very dear and beautiful country, Cameroon, baptized throughout the world as Africa in miniature, under the reign of the First Republic at first, and as continent under this reign in a second time, and perhaps galaxy in the near future, and due to the content of its potential diversified wealth, both under its soil and on its soil, it managed to live at a level of glaring mediocrity and in serious destitution, whereas at the start of independence, it was it that provided assistance to all its neighboring countries, and moreover today, more well off than it. Given the content of this glaring, deplorable and inconceivable failure of the current government in the management of the life of the nation that persists, it is of an imperative and obligatory necessity, if you Cameroonians want it for a prosperous, radiant, peaceful, and more radiant future than before. It is therefore time for you to act for a third republic, which is the urgent and effective change through the ballot boxes on the upcoming elections. This is why I will be a candidate in the 2025 presidential election. This is why I aspire to the highest office. It is a mission and a duty for me to give back to my country what was stolen from it, and much more, and to allow it to be among the most influential countries in the world. A man once said, I have a dream, therefore this is mine, because I believe I have touched with my finger the real fault of this decadence, of this decrepitude, which only pushes our meager hopes into oblivion, into abyss. I think I have found the umbilical cord that is supposed to reconnect all regions and tribes together to form one. all thought together to form one, and it is Cameroonian nation that will win. In addition, I believe more than anything that my only opponent, the only person who can prevent me from sitting on the decision-making seat, from accessing the palace of Cameroonians in Itodi to realize these great visions, is the Cameroonian people that you are. Your despair will make the difference because the choice of change belongs to you. Because it is our lack of love for each other that is the real trap of our current situation. Because you eat well, you vote for the one who gives you this opportunity, even though you are aware of his bad governance and you do not care about the rest. Those who vote by ethnicity, the others do not count, no matter how good ideas they come up with. Some of the political leaders who present themselves as the hope of the people sell their hope for money. Those who deliberately decide not to go to the polls, pretending to know the verdict of the polls in advance. This is cowardice, because a soldier goes to war whatever the outcome of the battle. He dies with his weapon at the ready. Those of the people who sacrifice their own destiny and that of an entire people for a miserable and cursed sum of 2,000, 5,000 francs CFA, no matter the sum. Sometimes for promise of money which will certainly no longer be kept after the vote. Some for a bottle of beer because the deliverance of a people is worth much more. In order to make myself better understood, when I say that it is you alone that can prevent me from accessing the Supreme Magistracy to realize this vision of radical change that accompanies me, it is for reasons mentioned above that we know very well. It is therefore no longer a question of finding someone responsible of our misfortune, or of pointing an accusing finger at the current head of state, at his government, at the neighbor, or even at the colonist, because each of us is therefore an actor, and in the same way as the other, either for change or for descent into hell, because only two outcomes are open to us. Read between the lines. But since the world has been functioning this way for a certain time as far as the management of a country is concerned, I must aspire to this supreme function in order to be able to solve the problems that I think are almost obvious and that have obvious solution. Even if we want to make us believe that these problems are not obvious and that their solutions are even less so, and even worse, that we have to look for them on the other side. Our problems are here, and so are the solutions. Women have always taken part in the war of liberation of their countries, whether they were recognized or not. We will not be able to erase the facts. And we know several of these female figures, head of state, traditional chief, war leaders, activists, fighter of independence, who have marked their time. So have caught my attention. Senegal, Aline Sitoé Diatta. Algeria, Lala Fatma Soumer. Niger, Saraounia Mangou. Germany, Angela Merkel. UN Secretary General Condoleezza Rice. Ancient Egypt Queen Cleopatra Monarch. Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, Head of State. Barbados, Dame Sandra Mason, Head of State. Costa Rica, Laura Chinchilla, Head of State. Dominique Sylvania Burton, Head of State. Liberia, first woman elected Head of State in Africa, Helen Johnson Sirleaf. Cameroon, Etobel traditional chief Douala, prominent figure of the German and French colonial resistance. Cameroon still, Mrs. Formum, the first Cameroonian woman to get involved in politics and fight for women's rights alongside with Ngombe Nadine Flora, Germaine Ayijo, Ma Chumbe. Cameroon, Queen Kunde in Bamoun Kingdom, 1879-1892, she led. That a woman should rise to aspire to the highest office in Cameroon cannot be seen as a taboo today, because history has known under these skies women who have carried the liberation of their people, like a difficult pregnancy that must be brought to term at all cost. Therefore, if it is time for Cameroon for a woman to lead the troops, to begin a new era in its history of change, I want to be that woman, and it will be now. There will no longer be any question about Cameroon in particular depending on a country other than itself to move forward in its economy, security, management, but also in its education and health. We will redefine ourselves, rethink ourselves according to our realities and in relation to the evolution of other countries. We will create our system of thought that will allow us to be able to position ourselves in the world, especially since we enjoy a strategic position that gives us a place of choice to be able to federate and extend our hegemony towards other African countries in order to stand as one man and set our course for ourselves as follows. If there is a table where decisions are made on how the world works or should work, Cameroon must have a place of choice at this table. If men must decide how Cameroon should work from their countries, we must also decide how other countries will work from Cameroon. Happy New Year 2025. Happy Year of Change. Happy transitional year, because I think that this is the year that we will move from the Second Republic to the third one. Happy to know that the election day, the ballot boxes will be the boxing ring for all Cameroonians for change from the north, the south, the east to the west, and the entire diaspora to fight for their country, because the time for change cannot wait. Time is up. It is time. But before I finish my speech, I would like to call upon another category of heroes, because if history has remembered that there were heroes in this country, men and women who gave everything for national cohesion, who gave everything to redeem their country, who gave everything to save the heritage of their country, men and women who shed their blood, and died to save their country. Then there will be another story that will not fade away either. The story of these men and women lurking in the shadow, who only carried out obscure acts to betray their brothers, their country, to denounce any action that was taught and carried out for the good of our motherland. Traitors who sacrificed the lives of the multitude for their personal interest, while some sacrificed their lives for the general interest. History will remember that these leaders of gangs, without faith or law, betrayed the good intentions of some leaders of this country that I know, who wanted to do things, but who could not because they were persecuted by these enemies of the nation. History will also record that men who do not give a damn about this country, who have no love for this country, allow themselves to rig votes, stuff ballot boxes to keep a system in power. History will record that. It may be neighborhood gossip, nothing founded or concrete, no evidence to justify such allegations. So prove me wrong. It is to you that I address myself at the end of my speech. Dear gurus of the liberation of the Cameroonian people long held captive by your care, 2025 is your end. If it is the end of oppression, of assassination, of murders without end, of inequalities of all kinds. It is the end of the oppression of the greatest number on the smallest number, of the high class on the greatest number of the population, which is lowered. It is your end too. So I warn you, do not dare in this year 2025 to rob Cameroonians of their deliverance. Do not dare to rob Cameroonians of their voice, because a voice is a sacrifice, a voice is a choice, a voice is a seed that must produce. If we decide to vote in Cameroon the woman that I am, let Cameroonians make their choice. If we decide to vote for any candidate, whether it is Carole MBAKOP, Maurice Kamto, or the current head of state, His Excellency President Paul Biya, or any other candidate, let it be so. But if it turns out that during this casting that is going to take place, that Cameroonians will choose to vote for someone other than the one you have planned, a candidate that you do not like, and that because you have the right to manage the ballot boxes, you feel like stuffing the ballot boxes to change your choice, to rig the figure on the minutes, that will be your end. I speak to everyone as I speak to no one. This is a challenge that I throw down to you. As young people usually say, I challenge you. I challenge you as I challenge myself. It has to end. It is going to end. And it is the end. Everyone has their own responsibility for this 2025 presidential. Everyone has his own responsibility for the 2025 presidential election. It is up to Cameroonians to go to the polls and stand in front of the polling stations to supervise the management of the various reports. And to you who are responsible for managing the polls and disclosing the result, yes. While Cameroonians go to the polls, you have the responsibilities of counting the votes and protecting the votes of Cameroonians. Respect their choice and be careful. Because yesterday you had your time of glory. Yesterday you had your time to speak. Today is my time. It is my time, and it is the time of Cameroonians. Time to fight, not with weapons, but with the ballot boxes. Happy New Year, 2025 again. To each his responsibility in 2025, and to all Cameroonians, victory. Because no matter which candidate is elected, it will be the victory of all Cameroonians. We need a leader at the head of a people. I am talking about a true leader who will lead Cameroonians to the promised land. And we will campaign so that this leader sits. And we will campaign so that it will be so. Whether it is a man or the woman that I am. The countdown has begun. God bless Cameroon. Victory is ours.